Welcome to Cash Talk, the podcast where we delve into the depths of finance, business, and life itself. I'm your host, John Cachia, a multi-award winning wealth advisor with a passion for empowering ambitious Australians to confidently achieve financial freedom. Hey everyone, before we get started, this is a quick reminder that everything in this podcast is of a general nature and nothing has been tailored to your personal circumstances. So please seek personal financial advice before acting on this information. Welcome back to Cash Talk, and today I'm joined by Andrew. Andrew, how are you, mate?
Well, John, and yourself, how you been?
Yeah, not bad at all. First time on the podcast.
Yeah, I've joined the list of collaborators, and I've been collaborating in the office with a few of them, Aiton, Mace, Anth, JK, and I'm happy to join the list and have a bit of a casual chat. Normally we do it just in private, but yeah, let's have it over an open forum.
Yeah, it's so Andrew's been listening to the podcast, which is good for a while, but joining the Thriving Wealth team, how long ago now?
I've been about a year now.
Wow,
so
yeah,
fast.
It feels like I've known you for much longer, but that's what happens. But today we want to kind of go to something that we've been discussing and something that, one of the reasons why you've also joined Thriving Wealth was really to understand how you can really make a difference and an impact on people's lives. And so, today we really want to be talking about finding your purpose and creating the best life for yourself. And it's something that I live and breathe. It's something that you now live and breathe. But how do you find people that you've been working with, or even in yourself? Like, how do you find your own purpose? Let's start there.
Yeah, I feel it's a quite a tough thing to work out at first. And I feel like sometimes it comes from moments where you're really down and maybe mentally you're not in the space you want to be. Personally, from myself, and at a stage where I've been experienced within the financial services industry for a number of years, but I just wasn't working out where my role is and was I being held back from where I actually wanted to really be. And I think working out what that is first and then aligning it with why I'm doing it. So again, what's really important to me, and normally sometimes it comes to those points where you want to protect what's closest to you, such as, family, friends, partners, and you want to really uplift them. But how can you do that if you're not in the mental space to actually achieve that?
So do you think that you found your purpose or are still finding your purpose? So is it a moment in time or is it an evolution? And when you look back on yourself 10 years ago, what was different to now?
It's an exercise that we ask our clients a lot. Ask yourself to see where you were 10 years ago. And even through my reflections on doing that, it was almost like, well, where I'm actually going to end up with working. I mean, I was still at high school, just finishing there with university. It allowed me an opportunity to see how far you can actually progress. And once you start actually working out what that is, that's where your motivation needs to come from within. Because once you're able to get to a stage where you can actually work out what that is, progress that through different thoughts, hobbies, work, you can really find yourself in the right space. And then I suppose that's how it translates into financial planning as a journey.
So are you trying to tell me, Andrew, for yourself that it was initially a moment? Like, when you look back at the last 10 years, do you look back and go like, that was the one that shifted it? And then you build from there, like looking back at where you are now. And we were talking off camera. He's recently got engaged. You're really excited about the next phase in your life. You've got a beautiful partner, all of these things. But if you look back, was there an initial time that kind of in your life, and it may not have been 10 years, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, that like shifted the direction? Or do you believe it's this just kind of evolution of life?
Yeah, I think my moment probably wasn't 10 years ago, but it was the moment where I actually decided that I really want to harness my role in this industry. And that comes back down to working out really what your passion is. And when you actually work that out, what that is, that's where your avenues continue to arise.
So with that happened quite obviously recently. When we talk about obviously that in your role, what about in your whole life? Did that have like a did the purpose have ricochets in regards to other facets of your life? Like, what was that?
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as you realize how that actually plays a role, and I think part of it is that once you actually feel comfortable in your own self with what you're doing in terms of if it's work, your hobbies, then that just opens up so many other avenues for yourself to feel connected with what you're wanting to achieve. And I think that's where my understanding and where my passion is within financial planning is that when we're translating it to our own clients, it's about working that out with them, which then opens up so many more avenues to achieve what you actually purpose or your purpose is and how to get there.
And I think, Andrew, for me, there are moments that transform you, and there's also moments that incrementally push you in the direction that you need to. But I think when it comes to living your best life and finding your true purpose, we need to be making sure that those incremental changes are pushing you into the areas that you really want to. Because when I look at myself, there's some big moments. Becoming a father, getting married to my wife, my back surgery, my stomach surgery. I've had a few health ones. The health events, very important. They bring I was very young and I tried to jump over a bonfire because my brother was older than me. He jumped over it. I went to go jump over it. I didn't make it and I burnt my leg completely like to crisp. And I had to get skin grafts and the whole lot. Like, what did that moment do? The moment where my father had a successful business and then we nearly lost everything, and we went from kind of living a quite decent life to living a very basic life. What did that impact of that 5 year? So there were certain moments that I see in life that put me onto a direction. I think there was also moments working with people or being surrounded by particular people, and that formed this evolution. And then incremental moments. So I think for me personally, there are moments that shift you. And I've had a psychotherapist on which talks about we were talking about humans adapt to different situations, different environments. And that is true. We see this adaptation into this new person of who you are. But I think there's also people that maybe don't think the way that I do in regards to those moments.
Yeah. And look, I think that's an important element of what you said, John, is that every client that actually engages with Thriving Wealth and comes to us has their own unique story. Everyone is so different. And you realize that there's lives lived before they even came to us in the first reason. And then the issues come out as a result. We need to get back to stripping back to what the story is. So that's going to uncover a lot about what's going to drive you forward with a lot of the plans that you're wanting to actually lay down, with why people sometimes come to us seeking financial advice.
And it's this constant, for me, understanding the story, understanding your story, understanding who you are, and then building a better life for yourself. And some people, these moments go by them, they think negatively. Don't worry, I've had some dark moments myself, and it's around, hey, listen, yep, you've had back surgery. Yep, you can't walk right now, but what can you learn from this? What's the version of John that's going to get back up on his feet look like? What's the version of John? What does that version look like? And constantly be saying, how can I make myself a better version of myself, which then portrays to a better life for myself, and not only for me, but for the people around me. But there's also some people that don't do that. They also look at the connection between that and the connection with finance as being totally unrelated. You just talked about Thriving Wealth and how much time and effort we put in regards to understanding the story that has happened to then build the new story for them. But you came from an organization, Andrew, that did none of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, and my experiences and our approach is shaped a lot of my understanding and belief. But when you actually put yourself in a different chair and look at the lens, look through a lens that isn't actually not typically explored with financial planning. I know that when we met as well, it was portrayed quickly that it's more about who the person is first. And if you can't get that part right initially, then how are you going to be able to get your finances and money sorted? And all those issues that have evolved over time that continue getting to a point where there's a car crash happening. Well, we need to actually strip back as to why that happened in the first place. And part of the thing is because people get away from what they actually wanted to achieve to at the start. And that comes from issues that we explore a lot with new clients. Is it no clear strategy? Do we not have time on our hands right now? Have we turned the GPS off on where we actually wanted to head and we got away from who we are as a person, protecting my family, having fun with family, even if it's to that extent, or even doing the things I love itself? And that's where we need to start actually putting back that roadmap back into your finances, because if we can get that sorted, we do that through understanding the person first and driving you back to what motivates you more, because you're going to find every other element after that becomes so much more easier.
Very true. Very true. And I think another thing that I have observed is, traditionally speaking, when it comes to people's finances, it's more about, if I have more, it means I'll have more in life. Now, we know that that's not true. We know that there's a lot of people who have a lot of money and that are miserable. And some are public figures, some are private figures. Some don't even know that they're miserable. I remember a client that they were married for many, many years. They had adult children, and the wife comes into the meeting before the husband. And this is when we used to have proper in-person meetings all the time. And the wife says that I'm going to divorce my husband. And this was a couple that was in their late 50s at that point. So they've been married for years, since their 20s. And I said, okay, like, why? And he was never around. He worked too much, nothing for the family. A lot of the common things you hear about people wanting to kind of separate. And they had a lot of money. They were financially very, very fine. And so, where are they now? Where are they now? Now, when I had that conversation, I was probably their advisor for about 2 years up at that point. Where are they now? Now, they're happier than ever. He was overweight, never walked. He's walking all the time. He sends me photos still today of his expeditions where he goes to. They see the world together. She used to travel by herself without him. They now travel the world together. They're now proud grandparents, and they spend moments with their grandchildren. It's absolutely amazing. They referred their children to us, which is a blessing in itself. Like, for you to then say, hey, listen, kids, you must go see these guys. They believe in what we do. It translates into living life. One of our advisors, Anthony, works with one of the sons, and they had a meeting recently. I know, and how are they going? They're loving it. They've had their second child. They're living their life. But then they go and they recently referred a client to you. And Andrew, I remember, the clients that we recently were working with, they're in there. How old are they?
Oh, yeah, just heading into retirement, so probably late 50s,
early
60s.
And they were astonished in regards to the conversation. Actually, the person who referred sent me a text essentially saying, like, they were absolutely blown away with the conversation. They've never experienced the conversation like this with any of their advisors in the past. But reality, the expectation about what they were walking into based on the experience that they previously had, their previous interactions were all about, what's this stock doing? What's this portfolio doing? What's this number doing? But none of it was pointed around them. It was all their money, but not them. And so, how are they going? You've been working with them for a few months now. How are they going, and what's the experience been like for them?
Yeah, it's a realignment of previous understanding. I mean, when you're going 30 plus years of having a consistent view of your finances, it's amazing how when you actually need to put them on a different train of thought, how much things actually shift and the ability to actually guide them through such a drastic change to what they're used to with managing their funds can be daunting for them as well. Funnily enough, I actually caught up with, and I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this story. I went and visited her at her own gift shop, which she runs locally to me.
This is a husband and a wife, and the wife
Yeah,
has the gift shop.
and she's at this stage where she's just running it by herself. But you can just tell like the passion and everything, like the detail that's put into the store. And this is my first time seeing her in person because we're just pretty much starting the engagement. But just the liveliness that when you start talking about what's actually fueling her at this point of life, the portfolio has performed to a certain point where they've got more than enough now to navigate them through a next stage of life. But it's the conversation about, I want to keep on doing what I'm doing for as long as possible. I don't want to stop that. And I think sometimes when we're looking at, your progression, we're quick to say, retire by this age. That's a great age to retire so you can start doing the things you love with the people you love, looking after the grandkids. But if it's work and your own shop that you're still enjoying, like we need to show you that you can continue harnessing that and can continue fueling yourself, because obviously that's going to be more purposeful than having the retirement and all this extra time in your hand, because that could be the case that you still want to do that in your retirement.
And that's it, time allocation is around spending time with the people you love, doing the things you love doing. This person loves what she does. If you stop that, what would that mean to her personal well-being? She gets purpose and fulfillment and living her best life out of doing that. My mentor is 75 years of age and he's still mentoring me. He does not need the money at all. But how the fulfillment he gets by working with a younger guy and helping them thrive and growing, you can see the passion. He lives by it. So when you use this as a clear example, what does it now mean for that lady in regards to the conversations she has? Because it was, from my understanding, she was very passive in regards to the money. She was not very involved in the money. It was kind of, that's what he did. But how is she now?
Yeah, I think part of the thing is that when you see how she engages with a financial planning conversation, a lot of it is maybe how she dealt with it in the past. And it was acknowledgement, speaking to her husband, getting his opinion, and typically agreeing. But my thought now is I want to make this about her more than ever. The husband's done so well to this point, and he's also got his own interests, which will continue harnessing. But this almost becomes more about her. And I think if we can engage her on a greater level, even the role that we play just to impact one individual is so profound. And then imagine doing that to so many others that haven't actually explored financial advice as an avenue to actually achieve this.
So pointing money to things that are purposeful for this lady also might be different to her husband. There's going to be a lot of commonality, and I know there is because I've worked with these two. There's a lot of commonality, but there is also differences. So understanding both individually what is your purpose, but in a couple scenario, what the couple's purpose is. And these guys were very aligned to not just themselves, but to their children and to their grandchildren, but also around her place that she was working with. So really, Andrew's job now is to work with these people to really, every single dollar that is allocated to things that help them to live a better life. Period. And if it doesn't help them to live a better life, that means to them more time with the people they love, doing the things they love doing. They don't do it.
Yeah. And I think the biggest message that I've taken away, I know you've got a number of years experience on top of me, but even for what I've seen firsthand, is you don't want to let your life get to a point where you're feeling stressed or restricted to work out that you need to get back to your passion and your purpose. You can start that so much more earlier And especially even for our younger generations coming through, even chatting to someone like a financial advisor, especially Thriving Wealth and how we approach it, is that we want to start that conversation with you early. Because if you get started on that early with the foundations, part of our role is that we want to look at road mapping your runway into future years. But let's get those first couple of years right, not because of what you do financially. Obviously, there's going to be strategies and habits you can put in place now. But let's start talking about you as a person and what actually fuels you, because you're going to find this plan is going to become so much more easier.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree. It's something that I think society has an interesting view on wealth accumulation. You know, an interesting view. It's a view of, hey, listen, I just want to put my money into something, it grow, and then turn into the life that I want. And I think that's very, the word that comes to mind is very careless. Careless. It's not surgical. It's not precision. And I think that people need to take this a hell of a lot more seriously. Not for making more money. I think that's a byproduct of what happens. It's more around, do you want to live your best life? I do.
Yes, so
you do. My wife does it. If they're truly honest, do they want to live your best life? Yes, you do. So if you want to do have your best life, let's use all the tools that we've got available to us to live our best life. Some of them are as simple as, hey, if you want to live your best life, there's pretty strong data to say that you should be at the gym. Get to the gym. You should be, not eating chocolate at night, every night. What should you be doing with your money? What should you be doing with all this? Now, one book that really, a popular book, but a really, really good book to understand how to live your best life, probably besides the Bible, which is for me by far the kind of the one that draws a lot of this from, but Ikigai. I can't remember the author off the top of my head, but if you search up Ikigai, that you'll be able to definitely find it. It's quite popular. But anyway, one of the things was around the Japanese belief around how to live a happy life, okay? And we need to look at centennials, so people that have lived beyond 100, okay, to live a long life, but a happy life as well too. So if you're speaking to a 100-year-old, are you speaking... They're not trying to interview the 100-year-old that's saying, please, God, take me away. You know what I mean? Like they want to go off the earth. No, they're the ones that are like, no. While I'm here, I want to live the best life. I'm living it because I love what I do. What they found, interestingly enough, Andrew, is that to live a long and happy life, your best life, they all had to have a purpose. They all need to have a bigger thing beyond themselves. Okay, so a lot of them, as you can imagine, were very spiritual. Okay, there was, if you actually look even in regards to southern Italy as well too, and areas like that, the blue zones, this is also very prevalent, that they need a spiritual element to themselves, a higher purpose. They also need a purpose to a community. So they need to be able to give back in some way. They all had some form of a job. Yeah, and it may not be a paid job. It might have been a volunteer job. They were the person that did this for the community. There's this, I've got to wake up, do this for this greater community. There's also this version of fun. A lot of them still did singing, dancing, things like moments that are just fun. So when you think about living your best life, a lot of those... Yes, they needed to be, money can help to make those more accessible, but money doesn't buy a lot of those things, yeah? So what we need to understand is that we need to get ourselves to a point of financial security we need to get ourselves to a point of then understanding, okay, beyond financial security, everything beyond that moment is around what's truly going to move the dial for me to live the best version of my life. Now, this is where people differ because yes, I like dancing, but I'm not really at the level where I'd probably want to do ballroom dancing every week. For me, I love my history. I love my religion. I actually love being by myself, working on something really innovative. I always can't get that word out, but always trying to innovate. That really kind of, I look back on history, understand patterns, like pattern recognition for me is huge. I really get a kick out of it, making something different and seeing how that applies for me.
Yeah.
Really floats my boat. So I think, Andrew, when we look at the reflections of the data, we look at about the reflections of the literature, we look about how people need to live with purpose and live their best life. They need to understand their story. They need to understand their own history. They need to understand what they truly want. And I don't think the world around us is making it any better. I think the world around us is putting ideas in our head that actually, in a way, don't make us live our best life. And I'm not trying to be conspiracy theory. It's around like marketing does something to us. Social media does something to us. If they call it the dopamine hit, whatever it's going to be, it's this certain trigger that happens to say, you need that type of car to make you happy. You need that type of house to make you happy. You need that. You need those things to make you happy, to make you live like you've achieved. I don't know about you, Andrew, but I don't think that lady is benchmarking her purpose of her life, of living her best life on the car she drives.
No, not at all. And part of her inspiration moving forward is that she wants to have that balance with what she does with work, but also how can I travel within that as well? Because she's also at the stage now where traveling and going back to see family in Europe and going to see other parts of the world is something that's really important to her. Part of our role, obviously, when it comes to looking at what happens financially is people are driven maybe by holidaying or those car upgrades. So we do have to factor in where you are to actually bridge yourself to that. But a lot of it is the fact that if we can find out how we can get there with the fact that you're approaching your life in a way that's fulfilling for yourself, it's going to be easier to project that because we're going to be able to reach that goal knowing that you're supporting yourself on all other avenues, which obviously then will project to what you can do with your life and what we plan for on an ongoing basis.
Why do you think people don't take this seriously, Andrew?
Part of what I feel as to why they don't want to get this sorted earlier is because they underestimate what is in their means to actually achieve, not only just in the next 12 months, but then how far they can also grow in those 10 years. So I know you actually raised that point earlier about where I saw myself 10 years ago to where I am now. And it's a drastic growth. On top of that, we're not only dealing with what we're doing personally, but also what we're being susceptible to the environment around us. And when people don't want to get to that point or get to the realization of that point earlier where they actually need the help to actually unlock this new level of their own life, they're just going to be delaying what they can achieve. And part of the thing is when we're looking, as we've got some clients that are heading into retirement, sometimes we need to actually look about where they came from. And if they've realized that and a lot of our commentary that we get from clients is, we wish we'd engaged you earlier or spoken to you earlier, is because they've realized that even in the short time frame that we've had to work with them to get them to that point, if they'd unlocked that even earlier, the profound effects would have been even further. Not just what we're looking at from a financial standpoint, but actually how they've lived their life as well throughout that stage as well.
Yeah, I think that's very valid. I think there's an element of like, why should I trust you? I only trust myself. Yeah, and just think about what I said. Like, why should I trust you with helping me achieve the life that I love? And the only person I trust is myself. Like, if you think about the world right now, not many people trust other people. We don't trust the government. We don't trust organizations. We're constantly seeing people do bad things. It's like, no, lack of trust. This whole like, so trust gets built over time. It's earned.
Absolutely.
And so you get to the point where over time we experience that change where people take that leap of faith, are on eggshells for the first couple of years, buy into the process, only to then come out 3 years later and go, yep, I now fully immerse myself in what Thriving Wealth's about, therefore I trust it. However, you got to take the time to actually first take the leap of faith, then trust, and cool. However, I think people are going, nah, the only person I trust is myself. Therefore, I only trust myself. Therefore, I'm going to do things that I know, that I learn, that I can go on ChatGPT and learn, that I can go on. Yes, you can, but you can't do certain things.
Yeah. And I think I can actually speak to all our advisors here and even our extended team within Thriving Wealth is that part of why our community is so profound and why even as staff we connect really well is because our purpose that we've established through our work is that we love celebrating and seeing what our clients achieve. And that's because we've put in the measures in place. We've projected their life to how they've and catered it to how they want to achieve it. If it's seeing them on holidays, seeing them achieve things or whatever's actually fueling them.
Starting their businesses that they always wanted to. They've worked for someone and they've always wanted to go out into the business, seeing that transition happen, being able to take the time off work so that they can spend time with their kids that they've had and, not have to rush back. There is so many events.
And even when we have new clients that come on board, one of the key parts we always talk about is the partnership we have. And it's that partnership, as you said, it's based on trust, but also the fact that we want to be able to celebrate all the great moments. Like imagine having your financial advisor or a professional in your corner that's actually saying, like, that's amazing. Like we're stoked that you're on that holiday because not only did you work hard to achieve that with support and guidance, but ultimately you had to actually put the measures in place for yourself to get there.
But I can do it myself.
Well, that's a common thing that gets raised all the time, which again, is it really true or do people overestimate what they're actually capable of?
Well, I just feel that's a very naive way to think about things because so psychologically speaking, unless some idea comes out from like somewhere else and you have this epiphany moment, you're not going to change. We talked about before when we started this conversation around there's moments in life and then there's incremental change. Okay. So I love my children, love them dearly. Okay. And so I want to teach them everything I know, everything. Okay. And sometimes, Dad, come on. No, you got to learn this because I want them to learn. I want them to be better. I want them to be better. So I love them. I want them to be better. Cool. So they inevitably, if they listen, and hopefully they don't need to trip over the same logs that I have. Now, they've got to adapt. They've got to build their own life. They've got to build their own purpose. They've got to build what makes them truly happy because even though the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, there is different fulfillment and different things that make them happy in their purpose. All right, cool. However, how am I supposed to get better myself? All right, I can read. I can learn. Cool. So I'm learning from someone else. Yep. Cool. Books, literature, YouTube videos, learning. Cool. But if I really want to take this absolutely seriously, and give you my business mentor as an example, he's 75 years of age. He's been in the game since he was about 20 years of age. That's 55 years worth of experience, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours, working his way to be at the one point the CEO of Pepsi. If I want to learn how to become a better leader, how much YouTube videos do I need to learn? And how do I know that those YouTube videos are right for me? Well, first and foremost, I need to know that he cares for me. Now, when it comes to our role, we're actually legislated to care for the person in regards to best interest duty as a part of legislation for that person. So the care is legislated, number one. Two, he sees things that I don't see. Before I started working with him, Andrew, I didn't realize how fast I make decisions. Super fast. Now people say, yeah, good, John, you make decisions on the fly, you act fast, that's why you got to where you got to go. Cool, yeah. But like my wife says, who also cares for me, John, slow down, observe, and smell the roses.
And it's great that your wife was able to actually, for someone who cares about you, to actually observe where your biases are and to actually strip that back and then use your community to actually start moving forward in another more profound direction.
So if you want to get a better life and you want it to happen sooner, do I watch 10,000 hours of YouTube videos? Or do I hire the person that's already watched the 10,000 YouTube videos, for example? I hire the person who's watched the videos, done the literature. Like, wealthy people who are both wealthy and fulfilled buy people's time. Buy people's time. And they buy that time to convert their time to maximize it. If someone is an expert in legal services, I can go learn contract law, business law, I can learn all that, or I can pay the lawyer to go do it. Which one am I going to do? Now, I'm using that as an example to make it translatable, but what I'm trying to get at is I think people don't take this seriously. They therefore make it 10 times harder for themselves to not just make it harder for themselves, to then realize 10, 15, 20 years down the track, these people that you're talking about are in their 70s. And the thing that they said to me was, oh, I wish I met you 20, 30 years ago. I can't give them back that time. I can't give them back that time. So regardless of if you're 20, 25, 35, 45, whatever, you don't know unless you go speak to someone that actually cares about you, that you can then end up trusting to then help guide you into the better version of yourself, totally centered towards living your best life and benchmarked on helping you achieve that best life. My mentor goes to me, I am judged on your success. I am judged on the leader that you become, John. We're totally aligned. He gets frustrated if I'm not achieving. If I just got an email from him before this podcast, cadence, John, essentially saying, John, you're going too quick. Again, going back to your old ways, pull back. That's the value of having someone in your corner that is totally aligned to helping you live purposely or purposefully and focus towards living your best life. Reflect on the person you were 10 years ago and reflect on the person that you want to be in 10 years from now and use every resource you have, people, energy, money, whatever it takes to bring that 10-year version of yourself. What happens if you could do it in 5? What happens if you could do it in 3? That's where you should be focusing your energy on. So that person 10 years from now is looking back going, how amazing is my life right now? Andrew, great first episode on Cash Talk. We got deep on that one. thanks for jumping on. But more importantly, thank you very much for watching and listening as usual. If you're continuing to love these podcasts, make sure you like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. We've seen some comments coming through as well too on these podcasts. So thank you very much for all of the 5-star amazing reviews on the platforms as well. But until next time, thank you and speak soon.
Thanks, John. Cheers.
Cheers.